Speaker.
Well, one person who is not accustomed to giving land acknowledgments is our president, President Trump. But he did take some time out of his busy schedule to have a little fun last night at a White House Correspondents' Dinner, Take Two, where he skewered his dear friends in the media. Watch.
As I said 3 months ago, the show must go on. We were back. I think a lot was learned from that evening. A tremendous amount was learned about security and about other things, the dangers of what we all do. But just like my presidency, the second time is always better. It's always better. And the third time will be better yet. After hearing the gunshots, many people yelled, get down," which caused Nicki Minaj to start twerking. Do you believe it? Get down. The association really put on a big show. They thought about going with a professional clown for entertainment, but Adam Shifty Schiff was not available. I was disappointed that Gavin Newsom didn't show up. I heard that he recently said that we will lose our country if we don't fight fire with fire. And to be fair, there's only one thing we know about Gavin, and that's that he definitely doesn't want to fight fire with water. I hope that everyone finally got to enjoy their entire very delicious beef tenderloins, very special beef. And I want you all to know that Bobby Kennedy, who's right here, personally ran over the cow in his car. Bobby also suggested an appetizer featuring his favorite cut of male raccoon roadkill.
Male raccoon roadkill. You know, and there at the end when he put on the Trump 2028 hat, as if he weren't already sort of kryptonite to the press, that really set them off.
Yeah, what did they think was going to happen? Like,
right.
Here he is. He gets another shot at coming in here to the Correspondents' Dinner, and of course he's going to go. That's part of the plan. It's roasting,
yeah.
And yet the media hated it. Watch.
None of them were funny. They were all just like literal bombs. Like it was just bomb after bomb after bomb. It's like we're not Iran.
This felt so far to me like one of those awkward wedding speeches where the bride's father thinks he's funnier than he is.
It is not funny to watch a head of state put on a hat that signifies that he is going to be a dictator.
The bottom line is this, I have a lot of trouble sleeping at night. I often have to take Benadryl, but I'm not going to have to take any Benadryl tonight because I could just replay that speech and I'll fall asleep like that.
So speaking of bad comedy, Van Jones, that's the third time I heard his joke, and it's the first time I got it. Oh, it was bomb after bomb after bomb. We're not Iran. And then you're going to...
His joke bombed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like...
Well, you know, he was great. The president was gracious enough to say, listen, this last event, the White House Correspondents' Dinner with the shooter and everything else, obviously had to be canceled. And he said, I'm going to reschedule. I'm going to come back. And it just seems like they can never cut him a break.
No, in the first part of his speech, which wasn't like 1 minute, it was several minutes.
That's right.
He talked about the need to stand up against political violence, and it was good that we were all here. You know, Caroline Leavitt said it was going to be unifying yet vicious, and it came exactly in that order.
It's very Trumpian.
It was in the president. And, you know, look, some of the lines missed the mark, and President Trump realized it in real time and said, who wrote that? Which was, you know, his typical personality on display. But I did think that there were a lot of other moments that he talked about, and I said this before, I'll say it again. He talked about the access he's given to most of the members of the media. Those that are even the most critical of him, he's given his personal cell phone number to them. And that is a level of engagement with the press and transparency that has not existed, not just with Joe Biden, who is the most difficult for the press to get access to, but really even going back several presidents, Obama, Bush, and the like.
No, he's absolutely the most transparent president and most accessible. Most of those journalists have his number. By the way, can I just say the ladies look so beautiful? I'm looking at Jackie Heinrich and also at Carolyn Levitt. They look so gorgeous, and everyone got dressed up and did it again. I thought it was very nice and gracious of the president to do that. He didn't have to, by the way. He didn't have to.
Throwing out hats.
No.
But he did troll them wearing that. Nothing triggers him more than him wearing that 2028 hat. Yeah.
He did say that he'd probably be back next year, and he heard that they may name it the Trump White House Correspondents Association dinner, and that would get him back there. We'll wait and find out.
All right.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.